Anyway, so this is, we're going to be talking about Hamza Yousef, or Adolf Yousef.
Adolf Yousef, yeah.
I think he's now being nicknamed by the people of Scotland, so from
Rightly
what
so.
I've seen.
So the reason that the people of Scotland are calling him Adolf Yousef, let me know when you're ready to play the clip, John. So I think this is really where he made his name. This is how he got famous. This is how he became internationally notorious, in fact.
So just to mention his position as well. So he's
Yes.
a SNP politician who is in charge of justice.
Yes.
He is their justice minister.
And for anyone who doesn't know, the Scottish National Party are a pro-European party who want Scotland to leave the United Kingdom and join the European Union, which is not very independent.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird. But anyway, let's play the first clip.
The Lord President, white. The Lord Justice Clerk, white. Every High Court judge, white. The Lord Advocate, white. The Solicitor General, white. The Chief Constable, white. Every Deputy Chief Constable, white. Every Assistant Chief Constable, white. The Head of the Law Society, white. The Head of the Faculty of Advocates, white. Every Prison Governor, white.
Now, you might think, wow, this guy sounds like a massive racist, but actually he's just arrived at the Edward Longshanks position on Scotland. Let's see it.
Trouble with Scotland is that it's full of Scots.
He's exactly right. Scotland is absolutely full of Scots. I mean, the next census will give us a more accurate rundown of how many Scots are in Scotland, but the last count, it was something like 96% Scottish.
So, big surprise.
Yeah.
I'm sure he never knew this when him or his family or whoever first immigrated to Scotland in his family saw that this was the case.
Based Hamza Yousef is supporting the English monarchy in this. But anyway, so what's the deal with the hate crime law?
So he has been campaigning for ages to get his little hate crime law passed. This is some reporting we have on lotus.com if you want to read the full details, but we're going to go over what we can here. So I wanted to go to the first link, which is the BBC article, just laying out the, let's say, state position on this, because I don't think they're very sympathetic to the free speech guys. They're not of interest to us. But they lay it out as, oh, it's just a controversial hate crime law. No, it's not. Like, this is horrible. So the first thing it does, which is interesting, which is it abolishes a blasphemy law from 175 years ago.
Important.
Which is good.
I'm sure it was being enforced constantly.
But then they just replace it with their own blasphemy laws against wokeism. So under the bill, sentences are increased if they involve prejudice on the basis of age, disability, race, religion, sexual orientation, transgender identity, various forms of... Oh, God, it goes on and on. And it
woke
just doesn't
supremacy.
Stop.
It's woke supremacy, Don Lemon.
So it also creates new offences of stirring up hatred, which previously only applied to race, but they have now got it to apply to literally anything wokist side as a privileged position.
But that very word, stirring up hatred, I mean, that is such a completely ill-defined term. That could be anything. I mean, this podcast could be stirring up hatred by that definition.
Because this is defined by leftists who, I mean, everyone who watches the show will know they define anything they dislike as hatred.
Yeah.
You are hate. And it's like, well, okay, I go to jail then, I guess. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
So this applies even to conversations within your own home. They used to have the dwelling defense. So you said it within your house, therefore you're free. But no.
Please don't arrest me, Governor. I said it in my house. No, that's no longer a defence.
Defence of speaking in my own home is no longer a defence in Scotland. So, I'm sorry, Scots. Like, you're... I mean, this is horrible.
You voted for this.
So that's abolished. There is no longer defence of that. Adolf Yousef made a statement in which he tried to defend his position when this bill passed. So he said, to those who think they may accidentally somehow fall foul of the law because they believe that sex is immutable, or they believe that adult man cannot become a female, or they campaign for the rights of Palestinians, or that those proselytize that same-sex relationships are sinful, none of these people would fall foul of the stirring up offense for solely holding their belief.
Oh, yeah.
No one believes you.
Oh, yeah, I'm very reassured. If that's not the case, why do you even need this in the first place? Like, what are you trying to criminalise with this, if not that?
I also love the fact that this is literally not a case of equality in the slightest. It is a case of privileges. It is putting privileges on certain classes, because they may say, we're going to criminalise stirring up hatred on the basis of race, for example, but this only really ever gets used in one direction.
Yeah.
And because it's from wokeists who define everything as white and brown-skinned people, and therefore the brown-skinned people are oppressed by the white people. Yeah. So it just gets used in one direction there.
I mean, Hamza Yousef seems to be a woke supremacist who seems to be stirring up hatred against the Scots.
And I love how the BBC guy, the analyst here, he actually admits it in his last line here. So he says, after saying a bunch of stuff, saying all that, what will this actually mean for you? Well, it depends on what you and crucially, how you is defined in the law, meaning how your characteristics intersect with the law.
Oh,
that's how this law will be applied. The Scottish Labour Party were upset that it didn't go far enough because it didn't include privileges for sex.
As in women weren't getting special treatment.
Yeah, the TERFs had a victory here in which they managed to get the biological sex part taken out. So Adolf Yousef also tried to defend himself on Twitter, which is the next one, in which he got incredibly ratioed, which was good to see. But this is him sort of defending that, there's a high standard for being prosecuted, I swear. There has to be certain lines, and he says there's a reasonable defense that exists. So if I have a reasonable reason to make this argument, that's a good defense.
Yeah, but if I'm talking to someone who is inherently unreasonable, like Adolf Yousef, then how do I even appeal on the grounds of reasonableness?
Yeah, he also says that there's freedom of expression clause that gives safeguards. These safeguards are under the European definition of what free speech is, which is you have it until you exercise it. I'm not joking. They literally say you have the right to so and so, but with the responsibilities that it is not used to harm morals, health, and so on and so forth. So it's like, right, so you have the right, but you have the responsibility not to use it.
Adolf Yousef's Sharia law has come into play, right?
And Dankula pointing out that this is just a lie. This is a complete pack of lies. He used these defenses. He used these points in his own case, and they were just disregarded.
Yeah, the reasonable man test can be disregarded in Scottish courts. It was in mine. Oh, good.
So
we even have an example of this. Where unbelievable.
Yeah, so the response from this is of course mocking Hamza Yousef because there's not much else you can do. I did love seeing this.
Yep.
Apparently someone's putting up Hamza Yousef signs in Scotland.
Adolf Yousef, yeah.
So that's absolutely great. But some of the other responses from this have been far wider. So I know you've been researching this.
Yeah, so I mean, nobody is impressed with this. So one of the Queen's councillors, a lawyer called Thomas Ross, said the SNP ministers had failed to properly define offences included in the proposed hate crimes bill. This was back in July 2020. He said it would be impossible for Scots to know if they'd committed a crime, which could lead to a debate on controversial subjects being stifled. Well, I think that's the point. Why else would you need these kind of laws if that's what you weren't trying to do? He believes the laws in place were already enough to deal with hate crimes, and the vague language in the bill could lead to serious offenders being acquitted. Serious concerns have been raised, including over vague language in reference to inflammatory material, and of course the section of stirring up hatred that signals that someone could be charged over comments perceived to be offensive, even if that was not intended. But I mean, I hate this. I hate the fact that they're like, oh yeah, well, you're not allowed to offend people. Man, I love offending people. Offending people was the most fun part of being on the internet. Now look at us. Mr. Ross said, if the Scottish Government is going to create an offence that can be committed unintentionally, drafters of the legislation have to make the essentials of the offence crystal clear, but they've failed to do that. So you've unintentionally broken the law. You didn't even realise. Anyway, the next one is that the Scottish police were like, well, hang on a second, this could actually devastate the relationship between the police and the public, because as Callum Steele, the Police Federation's representative, says, we are firmly of the view that this proposed legislation would see officers policing speech and would devastate the legitimacy of the police in the eyes of the public. That can never be an acceptable outcome, and we should never forget that the police in Scotland police only with the consent of the people. Police officers are all too aware that there are individuals in society who believe that to feel insulted or offended is a police matter. The bill would move even further from policing and criminalising the deeds and acts to the potential policing of what people think or feel, as well as the criminalisation of what's said in private. So it's nice to see that people of renown and expertise in the subject are like, Hamza, you're looking like a Nazi, what are you doing? And so Hamza watered down his bill in September 2020. He bowed to the pressure of, about this stirring up hatred clause. And he said that he would change the bill so a crime could only be committed if there was intent to stir up hatred against minority groups.
The intent decided by the court.
Exactly. And this is the thing. This is how Dankula got. Because his intent was very clearly to make a joke for the internet. But they were like, no, your intent was to hurt the feelings of Jews in Scotland. It's like, well,
you were trying to cause a genocide with your pug.
What Jews in Scotland? What are you talking about? They found the 3 Jews in Scotland, and they were like, "Yep, that's good enough for us."
Yeah. I mean, this is a reminder of how bad the police and the situation is in Scotland. The police got offended and wrote to the Jews, "Can you please be offended on our behalf?"
Was it the Council of Scottish Jewry or something?
They literally sent them the video, like, "Please be offended." Now we can get him.
Yeah, and they had to prompt them to make a complaint because there were no complaints about Dankula's video prior to that. But yeah, so it would only be if the intent was to stir up hatred against minority groups, and I'm so glad that a reasonable person like Hamza Yousef will get to define that. He said that, and of course this is not just about, when he says minority groups, it's based on characteristics of age, disability, religion, sexual orientation, transgender identity, and variations of sex. So I mean, like, again, you saying white, is that not hatred against a group based on their race? And the answer is, of course, yes, but they're not a minority, so it doesn't count. You can stir up all the hatred you want against the majority, apparently.
Because all of this is viewed through a Marxist lens of oppressor and oppressed.
Yes.
And the white people are the oppressors, the non-white people are the oppressed, and therefore you can be as hateful and stirring up hatred all you want towards the oppressor. I mean, this is why Anglophobia is probably the only accepted bigotry in the UK.
Well, there are too many Scots in Scotland, according to Hamza Yousef and Edward Longshanks. The concern here, he says, having heard the views expressed both in this parliament and elsewhere, I recognise that even with the protections I've just outlined, there is a real risk that the offences that don't require intent to stir up hatred, there could be a perception, indeed uncertainty, that the operation of this aspect of the offences may be used to prosecute what are entirely legitimate acts of expression. Well, Hamza, you're the one creating this hate crime bill. Why just have it so it doesn't do that, if that's something you're concerned about? I mean, you recognise that is a potential element of this. Why do it?
If only there was someone who could do something. Yeah. How about the Justice Minister of Scotland?
Yeah, I know. Let's write to him, shall we, Hamza? This in itself might lead to self-censorship. The bill does not seek to stifle robust debate, public discourse, or artistic freedoms. Instead, it seeks to offer greater protection from those who suffer from this particularly damaging type of offending behaviour while respecting freedom of expression. Sorry, they're mutually exclusive. You've got to deal with the fact that people are going to say things you don't like, Adolf. Anyway, he did water it down, of course, but doesn't really matter.
Like, the whole thing is garbage. Like, sure, he took off the worst part of it, but I'm still having to eat garbage.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I've made you this nice turd sandwich. It's got butter and lettuce.
I put glitter on it.
Mayonnaise. It's brilliant. It's fresh. Just take a bite. I'd rather not, thanks, Nazi. But anyway, the former SNP deputy leader has called it a danger to society. This is Jim Sillars, writing in the Times, said, hostility, racism, religious phobias and malignant prejudice, today defined as hate crime by ministers, is not new to Scotland, but it was the cleansing, disinfecting air of open discussion that would finally rid the nation and not the hammer of law, and means they are going to lose their identity as a free speech society, which they are. There's just no question about it.
I mean, the UK is an international laughingstock at this point, but Scotland is the international laughingstock of the UK.
Yes.
Like, the stuff they do is absurd.
Although I'm sure the Welsh will catch up with them. I'm sure the Welsh will catch up. I mean, if Mark Drakeford, an example of is it Plaid Cymru he's with? Is it Welsh Labour?
He's Labour.
He's Labour. But if they're an example of what the sort of future holds for the rest of the Celtic nations in the United Kingdom, then I mean, Scotland's not going to be the sole laughing stock for long. But anyway, when asked about this, Scottish people were not very happy with this. But again, there are too many Scots in Scotland. So on February the 21st, they were polled, and 85% of them decided that they actually didn't like this, and only 13% were happy with the proposals.
But who cares what they say?
Yeah.
They're not people.
Adolf Yousef is sick of the white people in Scotland and their opinions, and they've got to shut up because it hurts his feelings. Sorry, guys. If you enjoyed this segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can watch the full broadcast live every weekday at 1 PM UK time on lotuseaters.com.